All right. G'day everybody. Wade Northhausen here for Billboard Battalion. Today we've come out to a property here. Yesterday we were in Woomelang, where we had a lot of people there who were protesting against the proposed wind farms that they want for out around the Woomelang area here, which is happening right across the Mallee, right across the Wimmera. We're seeing these alternative energy suppliers, creators, all this garbage is popping up all over Australia, really. So we were talking to some people there, and we thought we might actually come out today, which is Friday. This is the day after the protests in town there yesterday, and talk to some of the cockies that are around the place and say, right, you know, what's happening in your area, what's the story here, with a view to getting people to understand the issues that farmers are facing, and what the problems are, why they're not happy with these massive great installations that are infringing on farmland and so on. So we've seen that the Victorian government's own reports have said that if they have the whole renewable energy sector comes to fruition like they want, this will occupy 70% of Victoria's available farmland. So that is massive. That's going to have a huge impact on food production and farmers' viability. So here today, we've come out to a place called Rosebery East, which is basically between Horsham and Oyam and Beulah and Woomelang. So that's out in the Mallee country. Broadacre stuff out here for people who are watching across Australia and the world. So we've got here today 3 generations of the Kranz family who have been farming here for quite a while. We'll get a little bit from Geoff here in a second. So Geoff's the eldest one here, we'll just put it that, young fella by the look of it. And his young bloke is David, David Kranz. And we have Jimmy. Jimmy's the middle one here. He's the 3rd generation of the farming family here. And David's partner is Donna Scobie, sorry. So therefore, that's who we're talking about here. So there's a huge amount of knowledge and investment, and this is the backbone of Australia that we're talking about here, Australian agriculture. So no better place to talk to than these terrific people here. So we might Donna was the first contact that we made yesterday. So Donna was the rebel rouser. She was the troublemaker in there, and not exactly, but anyway, we've got to pump it up a little bit, haven't we? And Donna really did some terrific work in with the executives and the team from the wind farm company. So we thought we'd come out for a start and have a bit of a chat to Donna and ask her a few things about what her concerns are. And if the boys here want to have a bit of a chat too, because this is how this goes, it generally gets going and we start yakking. So Donna, welcome to Billboard Battalion.
Thank you. Lucky to have you here. Thank you.
Well, mate, this is a team effort. This is the entire country has to come together, and this is part of what we do, is to try and get all our farmers on the same page and understanding there is a big picture assault going on Australian farmland. So we're very glad to be a part of what happened yesterday in Woomelang, and it's because of people like you that that's who needs to push back. So we're only just trying to connect everybody up, and we've also got wind farms that they want to put, wind factories, I'm not saying that, got to get the right lingo, over around Echuca, Tongala area where we come from. In fact, right across the road from our farm there. So they want to put this crap up as well. But so just you said quite a number of really terrific things in the meeting yesterday. So I just wondered if you might, just give people an idea of some of the concerns that you had.
I mean, the concerns are huge for us, and I could talk to everybody all day about the concerns, but first I'd like to start with a statement that we do not consent. We have not signed up for this. This is an absolute no-go for us. Cubico have prospected their way into our community, and they've absolutely destroyed the social and the mental health of the people out here, and they have no care in the world for the people who live out here and who grow their food and contribute hugely to the Australian ag sector. And we matter too. We need to be heard too. So this is our country, not theirs, and we're not going anywhere.
Exactly, and you know what we see across Australia with the people that we're dealing with this stuff is the pressure they put on people mentally and emotionally. That these massive big companies come in, they've got huge amounts of money, and they they start to play one farmer, one neighbour against another. They get people in the community to argue and squabble amongst themselves, and we've seen a lot of that. So what have you seen? And we heard a bit about this yesterday. What have you seen in terms of they're trying to make neighbour fight against neighbour? If you're interested in a comment like that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I don't wish to speak ill of our neighbours, but when we first found out about this proposal, we found out on Facebook. And we looked at the map and we zoomed in on the map and we said to each, yeah, we said to each other, this can't be right. This family wouldn't do this to Woomelang. They're not those sort of people. And then, as we discussed more within our community, we realised that every one of their paddocks was on the map, and that yes, this is true and this is real, and we need to push back, and we need to push back hard.
Yeah, and the main message from everything that we do is that farming communities need to stick together. And this is one of what these, and whether you're talking about the wind turbines here, whether you're talking about transmission lines, in other areas, whether you're talking about the solar panels, all this stuff, these companies are very, very clever in how they manipulate people and how they bring in money and they try and buy the community and all that sort of stuff like that, which, this is a shocker. So you might tell us a little bit about the exclusion zones, if you're aware of any of that, because there was a big discussion yesterday about exclusion zones.
The trouble is, everyone's left in the dark, and you know nothing. Like, one mob say there's a kilometre exclusion zone, and another one says there's 2 kilometres, and we've got one house that's 800 metres away from the host, and Jimmy is 1.5, no, 1.8 kilometres away. So who knows? Like, can you put up a shed? You just know nothing, and they don't tell you. And we went to this thing yesterday. None of them have any answers. They just don't know. They just, oh yeah, we'll take it on board and we'll get back to you via email. Donna sent that many emails and not one response. And this thing apparently we found out yesterday has been going on for 3.5 years. We found out in February. We have not heard anything from Cubico, not a letter in the mail, nothing. Not a thing.
Not a mention from our neighbours. I mean, they've potentially been involved in discussions here for years, and I'm absolutely appalled at the deceit. And I'm really upset, and I'm really angry that we found out on Facebook, and no one, none of our neighbours who are involved had the decency to come to us and say, this is what we're planning. So that to me screams that why aren't you talking? If this project is so good and so good for the Woomelang community, what's the big secret?
And with exclusion zones, you don't know, because like I said, they've got no answer. So I was planning on building a shed there, the house that's 800 metres away, but will we do that or not? And then they talk about you have to give 48 hours to spray your crops. There's just so many unanswered questions. And like, you go spray a crop, you get up in the morning, yeah, weather's good and I'm into it. You can't give them 48 hours notice. And then all of a sudden the weather's no good from the notice that you've given in, and then you've got a tank full of bloody chemical. What do? You dump that? There's just so much unknown, like, and they've got no answers. We went there yesterday. We knew more than them. They just stand there and nod their heads and bloody puppets. All they're doing is ticking boxes to say that they've been in the community, as far as we can see. Yeah.
And I think also, like, I've been involved in a huge amount of agricultural issues with government and companies and so on over many years, and this is what happens, and this has been my experience, is that you'll get these companies and government, they come into an area, the Murray-Darling Basin Plan is a classic example. They've already got their plans, what they're going to do, and they're not interested in actually consulting with the public, but they say, oh, we've had public consultation. We've run all these public consultation meetings, and in fact, it's just a box ticking exercise to make out that that's what that they've consulted with the community, so they can sell that to the public. It's just a public relations spin load of garbage. So
And I think if they've had this project in the wings for so long, yesterday they couldn't tell us where the turbines were going to go. There's 162 turbines involved in this project. They couldn't tell us where their placement was going to be. They couldn't tell us where the battery energy storage station is going to be located. They gave a vague response to maybe that the transmission might come out to the southwest of this project, which is right here. They know that they just don't want us to know. They like to keep us in the dark. They don't want us here. We're just a problem for them. We're going to complain about noise. We're going to complain about electromagnetic radiation. We're going to complain about so many things, and they just don't want us here.
That's absolutely true. And I remember we were talking to some of the people who were running the meetings, you know, for some of the transmission lines 12 months ago. And, you know, and I said to some of these company representatives, you know, don't tell me that you're just doing this on the fly. Your plans have been made for years and years and years. Don't tell us now we're coming out here, oh, we're going to have public consultation, then we'll work out where this is going to go and that's going to go. Now, this is a nationwide electricity grid thing. They don't just put this together in the last 5 minutes.
I really do feel like farmers are under siege. We're under siege from overreach by the Victorian government. We're under siege from renewables companies trying to knock on our door to push us out. Like it's just become to the point where it is a real mental health issue, and it's a social health issue, and for some of it's also a physical health issue. So, like I say, we need to stand up and push back collectively as a community and say, no go, Cubico, you're not welcome here.
Absolutely. So I might just go to Geoff here for a little bit. So Geoff, what size place have you got here, and how long have you been farming here, mate?
Well, I've been farming all my life. I come home on the farm in probably 1973. And that was my father's farm. When you say there's 3 generations actually standing here, my father was a farmer. He farmed after he left the Second World War, and my grandfather, he was in the Mallee, and he moved up to the Mallee in 1920 and started farming in the Mallee. So, I mean, we're actually 5 generations farmer, and before that they were farming down in the Wimmera. So if we trace our history back, we've been farming for 7 generations. So yeah, there is a bit of collective knowledge between all of us, and you know, David's certainly onto the electronics and all that sort of stuff nowadays that they've got to do. And Jimmy, he's learning it from David, mechanics and all the rest. And yeah, it's to have this thing just pushed upon us. I think it's a real shame for the younger generation because of just the you know, the impact that that'll have on the kids' health and that sort of thing. You know, I just think it's a disaster. And not only that, where we've got land right beside them, you know, they've got this buffer zone. Well, to me, you know, for them to come in and say you can't do this or you can't do that, if they're going to put the turbines there, they should be within their own property boundaries, so that they've got a 1.5 kilometre zone from their edge. They shouldn't impact us and shouldn't be able to tell us what we should do with our land. I just think it's bullshit.
It is unbelievable that somebody else can do something on their place, and then that impacts what you're allowed to do on yours. I mean, like the danger of that, you know, where people are losing tenure over their own property, they're losing control over their own property. And you know, we were talking to a bloke there yesterday in Woomelang, and he's got, I think, 3 of his boundaries have got this stuff. So he's got a 1.5k exclusion zone on 3 sides of his property. So, and it does. And he was talking about, you know, he wants to build a house and now he can't. And you know, I know that as this goes on, you're going to have more and more of them saying, well, you now have to move out of that area, or we're going to expand it now because we've just had some new science 5Ks, you know. So people, and then who do these companies cover the cost if you've got to build a new house because you can't live in the one you've got? So this is a very, very serious situation, and we're seeing this unfold all over Australia. But I just wanted to, like, the amount of time that you've been here back in the 70s, you came home to the farm, so you would have been probably running around with a 24-row combine behind the old chamber. And now, if we look over here, this is not exactly the old Massey Ferguson combine on behind the chamber. So what are we looking at there, Geoff?
Well, it's a os plough basically, and it's a 60-foot wide. Row spacings every 12 inches. Then you've got coulter wheels on the front to cut through the stubble, and then you've got your sowing mechanism, which basically you can rip actually deeper into the soil and then sow only about an inch on top of the soil. So there's a lot of technology there, and David and I basically picked this machine out. This is a new machine, but it's replaced an existing one that was probably 13 or 14 years old. It's a very big investment, and especially when you put the tractor on the front of it and all the rest, you've probably got $1 million driving around the paddock. And every farmer would have that same thing, and that's just your sowing.
Not headers, not
headers, nothing else involved. But so it's a very big investment. The other part that I see with this whole thing of wind farms and all the rest, anywhere they build a wind farm, there's obviously it plays up with all your radios and transmissions and all that. And sat-nav and all that. Well, how are we going to go? We rely totally now on GPS, because there's no way known you can drive that machine around the paddock without GPS, because you'd be covering over 5 feet, and the whole efficiency, the whole thing is based on GPS. And if they start, it starts to interfere with that, and we can't basically use it, well, it will be totally uneconomic to basically farm around here. And I just see that as one of the huge issues.
So how many hectares a day would you put in with that in good going?
Oh, well, you're probably better off talking to Jimmy. He drives a tractor, but they can comfortably do 400 acres. I talk in acres. Yep. I'm not much in hectares. But and they can do 400 acres, but if they really pull their finger out and bloody work at 24 hours, you'd be looking at 600 acres. But we usually don't. We usually spread it out over, 6 or 7 weeks to basically.
So when you come to stripping, you're not.
Well, not that, and also the ripening time, because you do get frosts around here, as you may be aware, because we do get clear skies and no wind. And no wind, and that makes frost. So and it spreads out the flowering time basically, so that.
Having all the eggs in one basket.
Yeah, that's right. And so normally they sort of do about 400 a day, which is, probably a 12-hour day, something like that.
So you brought up a really good point. Now we're looking at yesterday they're talking about these wind turbines and so on. The other big thing, of course, is solar panels. So we just look at this weather here, and it is dead still at probably almost 12 o'clock, I don't know, 11:30 in the morning or something, whatever it is. So here we are, lunchtime, it's dead still, there's not a breath of wind anywhere, and the joint's, covered in fog. So how do you reckon the old solar panels and the wind turbines are going weather like this?
They wouldn't be going at all. Nothing would be happening. And so if they rely 100% on solar energy and wind, well, it's basically just bullshit. I personally think this whole thing about solar and all the rest, I've got solar panels on my roof just to help my electricity bill, but as far as relying on it 100%, it's just bullshit. You're going to need either gas or coal-fired or nuclear energy to do it. Otherwise, I think it'll happen that we'll get blackouts, and I personally think the only way it'll end up impacting the city is if the lights go out on the MCG when they're having the final one night, and they're all groping around in the dark, and they might say, shit, there's no lights. I wonder why that is.
Well, this is exactly right. And I mean, we travel around a lot of the country, over a lot of Australia, and we do this, and we talk to a lot of these companies and say, so how confident are you that this is going to be able to supply Australia's electricity? and they just look at you because they're not going to say, yes, we guarantee that. They're not going to say this. Got that scum Chris Bowen who sits up there, and old sleazy Albanese and the rest of them who say, oh yes, this is a. I mean, Albanese was that smart that he said people are going to be able to charge their electric cars at night time when they're home with the solar panels. I mean, what the hell does that tell you? That's so, Jimmy. How much ground do you got here, mate?
I'd say 5,000 hectares now, roughly, close to that. Yep, farm and all that. And yeah, it's quite disappointing, really. Like we're saying, we're putting in 12-hour, 14-hour days, and sometimes more. And you know, that night here, and Pa comes and helps out over cropping time and harvest, and we're working our ring out, and just feels like we're getting pushed out of home when we're bringing food to them. It doesn't really feel fair.
So, you know, we'll touch on this for a second. The old thing, oh, the people in the city only reckon that, you know, food comes off a shelf. They don't understand farming. They don't, and all that sort of stuff like that. But we do a lot of presentations in the city, right? And if we've got city people hear what we talk about, city people love our ag sector. They love farmers. But if we don't tell them what the issues are, and the government deliberately makes, you know, they deliberately drive a wedge between city and country people. So now you get a young bloke your age in the city, you know, what would you say to them? Because, you know, like Geoff would know, most of the people in the cities used to have an uncle or a grandfather or something at the farm, and they'd all go back to the farm at the weekends and holidays. But that's gone now. That's dying. So you know, if you had an opportunity to speak to some of your counterparts in the city your age, what would you say to them?
Well, it's quite interesting. I've gone down to Melbourne a few times for a couple of events with my partner and whatnot, and you know, you might end up in the pub and you get talking to someone my age, and it's quite amazing, really, what they don't know. Like to us, what is, not to be rude, like common sense nearly, and they just have no idea what's going on out in the real Australia, out in the country, and that just got no idea how it all runs, really, like, and how they are eating and just how it all works. They're just so undereducated, which I think it's something everyone should be being taught.
And look, I agree. When you look at the school system, we talk to a lot of school teachers, you know, ones of our age, are horrified at what the kids at school are taught these days. You know, the things that many of them are taught is just horrendous. But, you know, where's the basic life skills? Where's the basic knowledge of where your food comes from? Like this is one of the fundamental problems and issues that we're going to face is food shortages because, as I said, we travel all over Australia, and government policy everywhere is knocking out more and more farmers. And what we're seeing here with these wind turbines and this renewable energy crap, you know, we're seeing you know, the banning of the live sheep exports. We're seeing massive imposts now putting on grain production, on cattle production. To sell anything, you've got to prove you're getting a net zero. You've got to prove what sort of crap. And now they're bringing in all these new mRNA vaccines for God knows what. Problems don't exist in livestock. They've got an army of vets running around the countryside trying to find some new disease. You know, they're going out and they're testing this and they're looking for that, and with the microscope shoving it up the backside of every animal they can find, and, you know, peeling off their skin to try and find something. They're deliberately trying to create problems that don't exist. So
I think one of the other issues that's pertinent to us here on this farm is that we're already seeing on the sheep declaration forms you need to tick the box to state that that stock hasn't been grazing under renewable under wind turbine. And with us, we don't run any stock, but I think it's only a matter of time before you find that there will be microplastics picked up in grain that's exported from places like here.
Yep.
Ships contaminated. Our headers don't have the skill to take those plastics from our grain. You might want to talk a bit more about, you know, we're on the ground stripping our lentils, so, you know, that's all going to end up in the header box as well.
Barley's got no sheath, nothing on it, has it? It's
Not
out
in a
there in
pod,
the open, it's
so,
not in the pod or anything, so,
yeah.
you know, and that goes into malt beer, so, yeah, it's just so many unknowns. And, like, if it's on the livestock Benny's deck? How long's before, you know, there must be something in it. Why is it on there if it's not an issue?
So he's going to be next. And I think this is where I have the issue, is that so many people say, oh, look, you know, your neighbours have got the right to sign up to turbines. What they do on their own farm, you know, that's up to them. That's not your business. But it is very much our business when we're right next door to this. We're perhaps carrying transmission lines. We've got the exponential fire risk from these turbines, and we saw that only 10 days ago down at Bulgana. Can you imagine, in a dry land environment like this, in the middle of summer, you've got our ripe crops at risk, you've got all our infrastructure at risk, you've got our people and our families at risk, you've got our employees at risk. Don't tell me that that's not my business.
And I suppose if you look at the a lot of the footage that we see from around the world of these wind turbines when they catch fire, you imagine a turbine head at, say, I don't know, 180, 200 metres off the ground on fire with, you know, strong northwesterlies blowing. This stuff's going to be showering sparks all over the district. And so it's just not appropriate. It is very inappropriate, and they're making it so hostile towards farmers. You know, anybody who wants to grow food or farm, government policy is making it impossible for them to survive. So, you know, with what we're seeing here today, people, you know, we've got classic examples here. These are the real farmers we're talking to, and now the issues are starting to become obvious, and more farmers are, I would just say, getting active politically now, because I think this is where it needs to be. Are you seeing? Were you ever interested in becoming involved in politics?
No, not until the start of this year, and you sort of chucked in it, and bloody hell, yeah, right. It's always someone else's problem until it's not, and then it's knocking on your door, and bloody hell, and then least political person you meet, but you get chucked in it, and then you sort of got to deal with it.
And this is what we're seeing. You know, we're seeing just your average everyday farmers are going, hang on, this is a problem.
Yeah, they're telling us that we need to be comfortable in a very uncomfortable position. And we were one of those people that didn't think that it worried us. And you know, and until David said, it comes knocking on your door, you always think it's someone else's problem. But I can't reiterate enough that you don't know when it's going to happen to you next. So even though you might not care about us now because it's not your problem, I think as a community and as an industry, we need to maybe be a little bit more aware about what's going on, particularly in Victoria with this government. You don't know when we're going to be next.
Well, as I can tell you, that's Australia-wide. It's not just Victoria. And
there's so much information out there. Come and talk to us. Come and talk to the 100 people that were at Woomelang yesterday. Like, we're happy to have this discussion about don't support these renewable companies in your community. Don't take any money from them. Don't sign any agreements from them. You know, there's so much that we need to get out there before it's too late for somebody else.
Oh. So this is what Billboard Battalion, you know, this is what we do. I've been in the ag political sector for 40 years, you know, pushing this stuff. And it's really, it's good now that we're seeing more and more average everyday farmers and more average everyday people going, hang on, something's wrong. You know, we've been trying to tell everybody the big picture. Everything's combined. What you see here in Western Australia, in Queensland, you know, it's all connected. The whole thing's connected to take out farmers. It's as simple as that. So, you know, that's that.
The whole situation is rotten to the back teeth, and it's very un-Australian, and we say no.
You bet we do. So I just wanted to ask you, with regard to, traditionally the Labor Party has been supposedly representing the union workers, which they don't. They're selling them out as fast as they possibly can. But here, let's have a look at the coalition. You know, like normally in rural areas, you talk about particularly the Nationals, they represent the farmers, the hell they do, and also the Libs. You know, there's a lot of farmers that I know, they say, oh, I know someone in the Liberal Party and all this other stupid crap. Well, the likes of the farmer representative lobby groups like the VFF and the likes of the National Farmers Federation and the other state-based so-called representatives. You know, how good a job do you reckon they're doing in representing us?
Where are they? Where were they yesterday?
Yep.
something there. When I was a younger farmer on the farm, I actually was very involved in the VFF, and at that stage we were demonstrating then. We went to Melbourne for a rally in Melbourne, and then
I was at that rally too. Yes, I was.
I didn't think you're old enough. There you go.
Trust me, mate, we were there.
Yeah, well, I was there, and I went to Canberra as well with that. A car lot of us went. But when we got home and told the people about it at the local VFF and all the rest, they just, and we said all these ideas about how we'd block the highway and, you know, basically cause a bit of disruption so that the city people might see that we're serious, and they wouldn't have a bar of it. They basically said, oh, you know, we're conservative people, we don't like to do that, and it's all that. So basically, after all that, I just resigned out of the VFF and said, this is all bullshit. But most farmers really weren't prepared to put themselves out there. And so I just said, well, bugger it, I may as well go home and work on my farm and bury my head like the rest of them, and just keep on trying to make a dollar. And I'm afraid the same thing's happened now with the CFA. With all the bullshit that goes on with the CFA, I've now resigned out of the CFA. Used to be captain once, no longer at again, because they've just got so much crap involved that doesn't really affect us. They try to get farmers to basically go down and you know, protect their scrubland, which we only joined the VFF to protect our own stuff around here, and we're not trained to do that or trained to pull out dead bodies or anything else like that. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, so it's been happening for a long time, and like I do agree with you, and a lot of the political parties don't give a shit, and I was very disappointed yesterday that our local representative of the federal level, who's the national, who just got voted back in, wasn't actually at that rally yesterday, because I do know that she had been told that it was on, and yeah, I was pretty disappointed in that, to be honest.
And so many people have the same sentiment. You know, like, and as I said, I've been in this political side of farm. I'm third generation dairy farmer from North Central Vic. And, you know, like, we don't do that anymore, obviously, because this just occupies all our time now. What we're doing is we do this flat out to try and get the people to understand, to try and raise awareness, to try and build people into a cohesive community action, fighting force, because farming is under attack. It's as simple as that. And what you said there before, I talk a lot about leadership, and where we've got so many farmers who they pay subs to the farmer groups. They've got the politicians. They only turn up on election day. The politicians turn up just before the election. They'll come along, Geoff, mate, you know, do you want to come and hand out how to vote cards? Do you want to chuck a heap of dough at our campaign? Blah, blah, blah. And then they just sell us out. So, and what you said, a lot of farmers, they just go and bury their head in their work. And, you know, that's very demoralising. And the stuff that we're talking about now, the mental health side of this, the pressure that it brings onto farmers, and, you know, sending people broke, so many rules and regulations, and creating wars between neighbours who have been mates for their lifetime, for generations. You know, this is all part of their strategy. So what would you say to the politicians? Because what we say is people need to put pressure on the politicians to, first of all, make them acknowledge that there is a plan that is wiping out our farmers. You know, because they go to Parliament and they put up their hand and vote for another policy that destroys another heap of farmers. They don't care. They're getting their big fat pay packet. They get to go on holidays overseas every year, and they think they're good. You know, would they be here? Would they jump on a tractor and help you? Would they come and say, mate, you know, can we help you do anything? Not likely.
Come and help fight fires, you know, when these turbines are on fire. Cubico told us yesterday that there'd be a staff here, but they will be nowhere to be seen. Just like
staff,
our
staff of 5 to 10 people, so it's going to work really well.
That's it. That's it. I mean, you get areas like this on fire, and you need 100 trucks. You know, you need group turnouts, strike teams, the whole lot, and they're going to sit there and go, oh, I don't know much about this.
we're
and
on our own. We're absolutely on our own, and these things don't exist out here now. They don't exist, and they should never become here because that's not the status quo. Take your rubbish somewhere else.
Yeah. And what I would say is don't accept the lies about climate change for a start, because this is what it's all based on, is the absolute fraud, the lies, the deception, the criminality of destroying our baseload power capacity for this garbage. So are you in favour of climate change? Do you believe in that? Anybody?
No. The climate's always changing. It's not going to happen over 10 years, thousands of years.
Yep.
I don't believe in it at all. I just think Victoria's, or the whole of Australia, is shooting itself in the foot because we've got brown coal down there that we've been burning, and they should continue doing that. And I just think at nuclear power, they should be doing that as well, because Australia's a very stable country geologically. We're not going to have anything, earthquakes and all that sort of
waves and so on.
That's right. So I mean, they don't only need to put them down in a hole deep in this, like their waste. They do it overseas in other countries, and I can't see why they can't do it here. It's just the Labor Party basically said that it's no go. We don't have nuclear here because they scare people into thinking that, because just their bullshit. And the other thing I'd like to say, just as far as this is a bit political, but
we can't be political,
we
Geoff.
can't be political. That's bad luck. But like as far as our Prime Minister goes, Albanese, well, he's never worked for $1 in his life. He's always been a public servant, and anybody who's a public servant has got no idea how people who work for their dollar and make it actually operate. And while he's there, all he's going to do is take money from the people who have got money and give it to the poor people who don't do a bloody thing for the country. And I just think it's a mistake. I mean, I personally believe we need somebody like Donald Trump in Australia who would basically do what he says he's going to do, and not kowtow to all the bloody politicians or all the stuff from overseas about climate change. I just think it's a load of crap.
So, in terms of the policies that all of our governments, whether it's Labor and Greens, or Liberal and Nationals, they're all signed up to the likes of the Paris Agreement. They're all signed up to the likes of the net zero. They're all signed up to the WHO and what we talk about, the International Health regulations, which is going to have a massive effect on farming. So, do you think it's a good idea for Australia to be signed up to all these treaties and all these scum organisations that are wrecking us, or do you think we should be pulling out and saying, no, let's tell them to get stuffed, and we have the capacity in Australia to run our own show?
Well, I think we do have the capacity to run our own show, and we should basically, I agree with you totally, tell them to get stuffed with climate change and net zero. I just think we should pull out and do our own thing basically, and create energy. We've got huge resources in Australia to create energy, and we leave them in the ground to sell them to other countries. I mean, how bloody, I can't think of the right word, how we sell 1 million tonnes of coal overseas to other countries to burn, and yet we won't burn it in Australia. I just think it's crazy. I mean, people say, oh, ban coal, you can't have coal. Well, those people who say that will miss out on a lot of their wealth that they've got nowadays. And I think it's like the politician at the moment, he's just flying overseas to America to another meeting in America, and he's using a jet aeroplane. How much fuel does that use? So, I mean, they just make it up to suit their own bloody needs.
And I think well said. I agree 100%. At the end of the day, we're selling coal to the likes of China and so on. India's building and China's building more coal-fired power stations and we send them the coal, they create the energy, they build the goods, and then they sell them back to us.
How stupid are we?
Well, I really don't want to actually say, but anyway, it's
It's just crazy. I mean, yeah. I just like, I don't know, you probably know more about, but One Nation, did they sign up to the Kyoto Treaty?
Yeah, I think that'd be the last thing they'd sign up to tell you the truth.
Yeah,
But before we sort of finish, I'd just like to ask you about, okay, so you've been around for a little while. What have you seen in Australia? Used to be a manufacturing and production country. We used to have terrific industries. We used to build amazing goods that we could use and sell and so on. What's your take on these government policies that are destroying industry and production capacity and manufacturing and jobs and wealth creation and making money? What's your take? What have you seen over the last 50 years?
well, like you, I've seen a lot of industries being closed down, or they get subsidised for a while through the government and then they get closed down. I mean, you probably only got to look at the aluminium factory down in Portland. It's rumoured that it's going to close down because the price of electricity is too high. I mean, it won't be long that even all the steel manufacturing, they're all subsidised by the government to keep them going. It won't be long and we won't manufacture anything. And about the only thing that we do manufacture, which is farming goods. All farming, we don't have any really subsidies at all. We've basically, over the years, we've got to become more efficient all the time to basically make ends meet. And our farmers in Australia are one of the most efficient farmers in the world because we don't have subsidies, not like England or Europe or anywhere like that. And now they're basically trying to shoot the farmers and get rid of them. And I just fear for the country in the long term, especially my grandkids, what they're going to have to put up with in this country. I just think really my generation has probably been one of the luckier generations, and I fear the foreign debt and all the rest of Australia have put up that our grandchildren are really going to suffer because they're going to have to pay for it. In this country, every year it goes down as far as, or further down the barrel as far as an industrialised country. We aren't anymore, really. Only our farming is really top of the chart.
And that's nobody's trying to be fear mongers or whatever, but we have to deal with reality, and that is the reality. Our governments, who are signed up to these international crap treaties and the rest of these scum, they're destroying our country. Our kids aren't going to have a future, and this is why we do what we do. Like, we don't. This isn't something we get paid to do. We're out here fighting this fight because we know this is so serious. And it's one of the reasons why we so much appreciate you people talking to us, and all the people who are standing up in communities now and fighting. Like, you've got people all over Australia now starting to form up and stand up against this stuff. One of the big questions I wanted to ask you is that a lot of people say, oh well, if Australian farmers go broke, and that we'll just import food, because the government's telling us, and a lot of the particularly rural media are telling people, oh, we produce this massive oversupply of food and blah blah blah, all these half-wits, these lying morons. So when people say we'll just import food if they send the farmers broke, I mean, does that not, for a start, most people, hey, what do you mean send the farmers broke? Does that not ring any alarm bells to start with? But secondly, you look at the Netherlands, second biggest exporter of food. The government there, under this climate change crap, is wiping out farmers over there. In England, they're paying farmers not to grow food. The government's paying them not to grow food. You look at Ireland, the industry over there, food growing, collapsing, all through Europe. the whole thing's fallen over. They're all under net zero. We've got to wipe out agriculture because they tell us farmers are, what, 30% of the creators of the carbon. I mean, what a load of crap at the end of the day. But where are we gonna get food from? There's people who think we're going to import food. Where the hell's it going to come from? Do you have any shine a light on where massive amounts of food are for us?
I've got no idea. I personally, I wouldn't know where the food's going to come from because, well, if they destroy agriculture in Australia, well, if we've got to import stuff out of China like we do everything else, well, most of their food's grown on soil that's been fertilised by human shit. So I wouldn't be too bloody keen to hook into that. So yeah, I'd rather eat my own food that we have within Australia. At least we've got decent laws. Yeah.
So there's a lot more that a huge amount we could talk about, but I think we probably should look at wrapping up about now. But any final words that you might have to say, Jimmy or David or Donna, anything that you like to close with?
One thing that really bugged me yesterday was going back on these turbines and how I'm 1.5 or 1.8k away from all these being shoved into my backyard. I asked all the Cubico mob yesterday, I said, would you, on honesty, want to live under this at 1.5k? Every one of them pushed me away. That no one had an answer for me, and that's the thing. It seems just because we're out here, we've forgotten about, and we don't matter, and we just think it's not really fair. Load of crap.
Yeah, you're right. We don't matter, and that's why it's here, because there's fewer people out here, and they just know that they can stick it in here, and that it might be a couple hundred voices will demonstrate about it. But if they tried to put it down beside Melbourne, well, they'd have about 500,000 people signing up about it, so they just think it's an easy way to do it.
So what a shocking, what a terrible thing for like fifth generation of farmers here in Australia to say we don't matter.
It's the truth of it, though, isn't it? And as far as the hosts go, we had one person yesterday say that the hosts of these turbines and that say that it's just a business decision for them, which is fair enough, it is. But we make business decisions every day, like what crop we're going to put in, and when we say I'm going to sell grain or that it doesn't affect any of our neighbours. Whereas this does, and they can't see that. It's they're selfish, and for them saying it's a business decision, it's not right.
Certainly not in line with our expectations at all.
And one of the things that we're starting to see, just to expand on that a little bit, a lot of the people who first got engaged with this sort of stuff, I think that didn't see the whole contract, didn't see the whole ramifications of their decisions. And now I know that there's some of the people who we've spoken to over the last while and all the different meetings and communities that we go to, a lot of the people who are hosting these things are saying to us now, we actually didn't realise this, or we didn't realise that, or we didn't understand that this was going to be the ramifications.
That may be all well and good. It may be true because I know there is a lot of trickery used with some of these proponents, but they've had years to try and get out of these contracts. They've had years to stand up and say, I'm sorry, we're out, but we're not seeing any of that at all.
You hear rumours of people being out and that, but rumours, who knows? They are or they aren't. Yeah. If they are out of it, they should be at the meetings like yesterday and one we had a couple of weeks ago. They should be standing up the front there and saying, we stuffed up, we signed this thing, we thought it was all going to be great, but we stuffed up and we've seen what's doing in the community and we're trying to get out of it. It might cost us a bit of money to get out of it, but that's what, if they're really out of it.
Really involved in the community like I think they are, then that's what they'll be doing.
Yeah, so she's a hard old one. You mentioned before, Geoff, about nuclear power and disposal of rods and so on. But I think the other ticking time bomb in this region is mining on farms, and for the people who say we don't want We don't want nuclear because where would you dispose of the waste, etc. So, 10 years ago I was going crook about mining and no one wanted to listen, but now they're starting to because they're actually starting to put, footprints on their farms. But a lot of the sand mining actually exposes radioactive material to the environment and to the people. So, I think that there's a fairly big conversation needs to be had, and people are not aware of all the stuff because our politicians, the people who we pay a lot of money to represent us, don't. They're just happy to have their snout in the trough and live a life of luxury at everyone else's expense, and just put their hand up and nod when they're told to, instead of actually looking at what's happening and how that's going to affect the country and the very people who they're supposed to represent. So, all right, well, I'd like to just, on behalf of Billboard Battalion and the community, say a really, really big thank you for your time today. This is, you can go to as many lobbyists and so on as you want, and many of these politicians, but what we're looking at here, these are the real people. These are the real Australians. This is rural and agricultural Australia right here. It doesn't get any more grassroots. It doesn't get any more straightforward. And I really appreciate people who will just tell the truth. Just say, well, this is where it's at. This is what we have seen. This is our experience. This is the problems it's creating for us. And here's the reality, and like Jimmy here, we've got young blokes who, want to come onto the land. Well, we need to fight to keep our young blokes in business, because the governments who are working for the likes of the World Economic Forum and the United Nations and the WHO are absolutely in the business of destroying Jimmy's future and all of your generation. They're in the business of wiping this out. This is a part of their documented strategy that they want under the heading of climate change. So all the people who think, oh yes, climate change is real and all this sort of thing, the destruction of what you're seeing here, that is what it's about. That's the whole purpose of it. Climate change is absolute crap. It's a fraud. It's lies. The evidence now, the disasters they told us were going to happen 25 years ago. The polar ice caps will be melted by 2000. That's a quarter of a century ago, and what do you know, they're still there. So don't believe the so-called science. It's all BS. It's all lies. And the scientists that say it's true should be locked up in jail forever. That's the nicest thing I can say that should happen to them. I've got some other ideas just in case anyone's interested, but anyway, we'll just run with that. So thanks again, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, terrific job. Really, really well done. And keep up the fight and keep up the battle.
Thanks for listening.
All right, we'll catch up with you a bit later.
Yep, sure.
And Jimmy. Thanks, Geoff.
Good, thank you.
Thanks very much,
Good
Donna.
job. Thank you.
Thanks, Donna.